On September 19, 2023, Canada expelled a senior Indian diplomat over allegations of Indian government's involvement in the killing of a known Khalistani terrorist in Canada. The Indian government, in return, has denied the allegations and has retaliated by expelling a Canadian diplomat. Let me begin with the story and give you an overall understanding of this diplomatic spat between India and Canada. As you all know, when Prime Minister Modi responds, he gives a direct, simple and to-the-point answer without any evasion, whether it's about politics, issues related to the nation's interest or national security. Prime Minister Modi's government took swift action this time without any hesitation when it came to Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. While addressing the House of Commons in Canada, Trudeau made serious allegations against India. These allegations were related to the death of a Khalistani terrorist. Trudeau's accusations were taken seriously by India, and I will also tell you how the Indian government's response to Trudeau's allegations made him rethink his stance. But first, let's look at what Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau accused India of. Justin Trudeau stated in the Canadian House of Commons that Canadian Security Agency would investigate the death of Hardeep Singh Nijjar, a Canadian citizen of Indian origin. He mentioned that Canada would not tolerate violence or involvement of any foreign government or country, as it goes against the fundamental principles of democracy. If you put it in the right context, you will see that Trudeau is supporting a known Khalistani terrorist and taking a stance against India. After Justin Trudeau's statements, Canadian government expelled a senior Indian diplomat. Melanie Joly, the Canadian Foreign Minister, stated that
I would like to extend my condolences to the family and loved ones of Hardeep Singh Nijjar.
They were taking this action as part of their investigation, and if the allegations were proven true, it would be a violation of the basic foundations of human rights. I want you to listen carefully to the statements made by Canada's Foreign Minister. After that, I will explain the further actions taken by the Indian government with respect to a Canadian diplomat.
The allegations that a representative of a foreign government may have been involved in the killing of a Canadian citizen here in Canada on Canadian soil is not only troubling, but it is completely unacceptable. If proven true, this would be a grave violation of our sovereignty and of the most basic rule of how countries deal with each other. We've been clear, we will not tolerate any form of foreign interference. Since this was brought to our attention, we've been guided by three principles. The first one, we will seek the truth. The second one, we will protect Canadians at all times. And thirdly, we will protect Canada's sovereignty. I've conveyed these principles to my Indian counterparts, and as of today, and as a consequence, we've expelled a top Indian diplomat from Canada.
So, if you listen closely to this lady's statement, you will realize that they are still in a planning stage for investigation of this matter. However, even before conducting the investigation, they expelled the Indian diplomat from Canada. Ideally, one must investigate first and then take action. But here the Canadian government has already taken action by expelling a senior Indian diplomat and told him to return to India. And you can also sense the tone of this lady when she speaks, as if they think India will succumb to pressure after hearing about these actions. I should also mention where this tone is coming from. If you remember, the G20 summit was recently held in India, where many world leaders, including Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, attended the summit. And you all know what happened with Trudeau. Let me quickly tell you what happened during the G20 summit with him. If I have to say it in a very informal sense, Justin Trudeau's visit for the G20 summit in India was full of awkwardness and embarrassment. Trudeau also skipped a number of events during the summit, including the official G20 gala dinner and the launch of the Global Biofuel Alliance. He has still not given any explanation for this. And then you must have seen the picture where Prime Minister Modi tried to grasp Trudeau's hand, but Trudeau pulled back. If this was not enough, Justin Trudeau even requested for a bilateral meeting with Prime Minister Modi, but the Indian government refused and New Delhi granted Trudeau a side meeting. And when that meeting happened, Prime Minister Modi took up the issue of Khalistani extremism in Canada and threats of violence against Indian diplomats from Khalistani extremists. Again, his face turned small. Actually, Prime Minister Modi scolded him for allowing Khalistanis to parade on the roads of Canada. Even Canada's main opposition leader, he mocked Trudeau and tweeted about him. So all this humiliation became a matter of laughingstock in Canada as well, Many Canadian political analysts said that Trudeau's role and presence at the G20 summit didn't appear well for the country. And finally, his airplane was grounded. It had some technical issue. Actually, it was suffering from a maintenance problem, because of which he finally left for home after a delay of 36 hours. All his bags were packed, but he was grounded for 36 hours. Now, this is the situation of a developed country. Anyhow, and what is more surprising is that while he was grounded, he had to stay in a hotel room where the Indian government did not engage with him. He was stranded like a regular tourist. So this humiliation and embarrassment of the Canadian Prime Minister was packaged and served while expelling the Indian diplomat. Even the Indian government is aware of it, and they are responding to the Canadian government in an appropriate sense. Now let me tell you what the Indian government did in response. As soon as the Indian government received a formal message from the Canadian government stating that they have expelled a senior Indian diplomat, do you know what the Indian government do? They immediately called the Canadian High Commissioner Cameron Mackay to the Ministry of External Affairs headquarters and told him to leave India within 5 days. I will give you more details so you understand the matter's gravity. The Canadian High Commissioner went inside the Ministry of External Affairs headquarters at 10:26 am in the morning, and just 4 minutes later, he came out in anger, banged his car door and left from there. Just imagine, the Indian government summoned the Canadian High Commissioner for only 4 minutes and showed him the way out of the country. And then immediately the Indian government issued a notice on their website and gave a reason saying that India's growing concern at the interference of Canadian diplomats in our internal matters and their involvement in anti-India activities. So this is what the Canadian government and the Indian government did with each other. Now let's move on to the main matter, why the Canadian government is doing what it is doing. And when I say Canadian government, I mean their head representative Justin Trudeau. Why is he becoming a doormat for Khalistanis day by day? You all must be thinking that the reason Justin Trudeau and his government is doing what it is doing is because they highly respect and value human rights. And they are really concerned about what happened with Hardeep Singh Nijjar. And then couple of days back, another Khalistani terrorist, Sukhadul Singh, was killed. So let me tell you that it is not like that. Things are not as simple as it looks. There are many reasons behind Justin Trudeau and his government's action against India. I mean, just think about it. Canada is a developed country, a first world nation. Are they so amateur that they could not even find out who killed all these Khalistani terrorists in Canadian soil? They are still doing investigation. And before even concluding the investigation, they have taken action by expelling a senior Indian diplomat. How can a first world country, such a professional developed nation, can take such a decision by calling out name without even concluding any investigation? And that too openly, arrogantly speaking out their mind without any proof in their own parliament. This kind of unprofessionalism does not even happen in a small office. So things are not as simple as it looks. Justin Trudeau and his government is up to something, and I will tell you what that is. Let's do deductive reasoning. Justin Trudeau is a politician. His primary goal is to come back again in the next election. To win any election, you need your electoral support. So this becomes the first reason why Justin Trudeau and his political party, that is Liberal Party, is playing dirty politics, because they want to win the electoral support of Sikh and Punjabi people living in Canada. Canada is home to the second largest Sikh population in the world after India. They make up a significant voting bloc in Canada, and they do carry some political influence. So to garner support of this bloc, the Liberal Party of Canada from time to time is doing all those things that makes the Khalistanis happy. But then I want to tell you that it is not as if Liberal Party of Canada cannot win the next election without Khalistani support. It is not like that. Yes, they need their support, but I'm not saying that only their support will get the Liberal Party where they want to be. Let's go to the second reason now. The whole issue started because of the death of Hardeep Singh Nijjar, a known Khalistani terrorist. He was shot and killed in the mid of June this year. Almost 3 months have passed. We did not hear anything from the Canadian government in these 3 months. And then, as you know, from 7th September, G20 summit started in New Delhi. All the heads of G20 countries started arriving in New Delhi. The Indian government also hosted a formal dinner for all the guests. But Justin Trudeau refused to attend the G20 formal dinner. Now think about it. India is only the host of G20 summit. Next time, some other country will be the host. Apart from the Indian Prime Minister, there were Prime Ministers and Presidents of so many countries, and that too very important countries. Why did Justin Trudeau behave that way? If he had some personal problem against Prime Minister Modi, he could have ignored him and simply attended the dinner for the sake of spending time with other country heads. After all, these kinds of summits are not meant for individual preferences. This is about extending countries' and nations' interests. But then if you see, Justin Trudeau deliberately made an issue out of it by skipping the dinner and showed passive aggression. In return, he also got what he deserved. His request for a bilateral meeting with Prime Minister Modi was not extended. And on the last day, his airplane was grounded and he was sitting in the hotel as a tourist. The Indian government did not engage with him while he was stranded for 36 hours. So all this drama happened till 12th September and he finally left for Canada. Once he returned to Canada, that is on 13th and 14th September, the opposition leaders, opposition parties of Canada and the media of Canada trolled him and embarrassed him for his amateur foreign policy. And then if you remember, on 16th or 17th September, the Indian government said to the Canadian government that they would like to put a hold to the free trade agreement. If you recollect, India and Canada have been negotiating FTA for a very long time. So that was put on hold by the Indian government on 16th or 17th September. And then as you know, on 18th September, the Canadian government, that is Justin Trudeau, raised the issue of Hardeep Singh Nijjar's death. After 3 months, he thought of raising this issue in the Canadian Parliament and blamed the Indian government for his death, gave orders for an investigation and further decided to expel a senior Indian diplomat, and that too without any evidence. So this is the chronology of the events and you can connect the dots. And then on September 21st, the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau called on India to cooperate with an investigation into the murder. Basically, first, you take the name of India and blame India without any evidence, and that too you do it with full arrogance. And then after a couple of days, when you get conscious and try to damage control by requesting India to cooperate with an investigation into the murder. Do you realize the naivety of the Canadian Prime Minister? Canada being a developed country, first world country, a G7 country, if their intelligence agency is so powerful and they have evidence of India's wrongdoings, and that is the reason the Canadian Prime Minister took India's name and blamed India openly in the Canadian Parliament, then why do they need India's cooperation if they have strong evidence against India? And then if you don't have any evidence against India, then why did the Canadian government spoke rubbish and lied without any evidence? So this is where you have to understand that what happened to Justin Trudeau after he left India. G20 summit was for 2 days and then more 2 days he was in India because of his airplane issue. So within this time frame, something has happened with Justin Trudeau in India. That is the reason after he went back to Canada, he started all this nuisance. And I will also tell you one more thing. Hardeep Singh Nijjar was killed in June. The Canadian government has all the video evidence, street footage, vehicle license plate, everything. Even still, they could not catch the culprit. Well, they want to catch or they don't want to, that is their business. But the reason that issue was raised right after 3 months, that is after the end of G20 summit, and that too providing no evidence and taking India's name openly, on top of it expelling a senior Indian diplomat arrogantly, this is not suspicion, it is a well thought out political strategy by the Liberal Party of Canada against the Indian government. And now you must have seen in the news that the Indian government has suspended visa services for Canadians. Now this will be a moment to watch. What will Canada do? Do you think the Canadian government will do the same thing? Will they suspend visa services for Indian nationals? And I think if they do, that will be a moment to watch. India is the largest source country for international students in Canada, with over 320,000 students enrolled in Canadian schools in 2022. These students pay high tuition fees, which contribute billions of dollars to the Canadian economy each year. Indian workers are also a major source of skilled labor for Canada. In 2021, India ranked second among countries of origin for new permanent residents admitted to Canada. With over 45,000 Indian immigrants arriving in the country, Indian workers are employed in a wide range of sectors including healthcare, technology and engineering. India is Canada's 10th largest trading partner, with bilateral trade in goods and services totaling over $10 billion in 2022. Canada imports a variety of goods for India including lentils, pulses and textiles. Canada also exports a variety of goods to India including machinery, equipment and fertilizers. So Indian citizens play an important role in the Canadian economy. The strength of Indian citizens in building the Canadian economy cannot be compared to that of Canadian citizens building the Indian economy. This is what we call diplomacy. How can you trap another country by highlighting your weakness through a futile action? And that's exactly what the Prime Minister of Canada seems to have done by digging himself quite a hole. In the end, I just want to highlight this matter very quickly. Where do you think these Khalistanis want to build their Khalistan? Obviously, they want to do it here in India. But they very well know that if they come to India, they will be put behind the bars. They will be treated very harshly by the Indian law enforcement. So the actual Khalistani elements will not come to India. And those Canadian citizens of Indian origin who look very normal from outside, but let's say inside them they have pro-Khalistani feelings, now even they can't visit India after the Indian government has put a ban on Canadian visa services. Now Canada cannot ban Indian visa services, otherwise their economy is going to get a large dent. So what will these Khalistanis do? They can't come to India, so where do you think they will make Khalistan? Obviously there's only one place left, that is in Canada. There is this guy called Jagmeet Singh. He is a member of the Canadian Parliament and he is the leader of the New Democratic Party. He is the one who pulls Justin Trudeau strings on the Khalistani issue. He himself is a Khalistani supporter. Now after doing this huge blunder, the Canadian Prime Minister is going to his big daddy, the US President Joe Biden. And he seems to be getting some support from the US government. Even the US President took side of Justin Trudeau. Now leave everything aside, I just want you to think about this. The Canadian Security Intelligence Service, CSIS, and the American CIA, they work very closely with each other. In fact, have you heard of Five Eyes Intelligence Alliance between United States, UK, Australia, Canada, and New Zealand? You think they are not aware of the whole Khalistan movement and India's internal fault lines? They are aware of every single detail of Khalistan movement. And they are also aware of the fact that where exactly these Khalistani won their land. It is the Punjab region of both India and Pakistan. And we all know that Pakistan is United States' puppet. United States can use Pakistan whenever they want. In fact, the news is out that it is the United States who helped Pakistan for getting the IMF bailout fund of $3 billion in return for sending Pakistani arms to Ukraine. Because Pakistan is that country that the Western countries use to keep India in check so that India does not go out of line. And Pakistan is also the country which gives direct land access to the United States and its allies to go to Central Asian countries. Both the United States and Canada are involved in this situation, and their main objective is to prevent India from becoming a prominent global power. Since they cannot openly admit to supporting the Khalistan movement due to their strategic interests, they use alternative terms such as human rights violation and democracy concerns. It is not as if these Western countries have a clean record of human rights. They like to use these terms and they hide their dirty politics behind these terms because that's what makes them look like a superhero. I have said this before in my previous videos and I will say it again. After 1991, communism left Russia and it has moved deep into the Western society under a brand new name. When I say Western society, it is the United States, Canada, European countries, Japan, South Korea, Australia, and New Zealand. Communism, social democracy, socialism all are brainchild of Marxism. And today you will find all modern versions of similar ideology. You just have to add neo in front of all these words. You look at any political party in the Western countries, whether it is the Labour Party, Democrats, Socialists and Liberals, all follow the neo-Marxist theory. The only difference between Marxism and neo-Marxism is that the modern version, that is the neo-Marxist theory, has very smartly incorporated capitalism because they understand the value of money. Then academic fraternity, that's why universities have become a breeding ground of social justice warriors, in other words woke culture. As far as Justin Trudeau is concerned, this is not the first time he has shown his stupidity. Last year in G20 meeting in Indonesia, Chinese President Xi Jinping confronted and scolded him for leaking private conversations to media. Watch this clip.
Everything we discuss is then leaked to the paper, that's not appropriate. And that's not how the way the conversation was conducted. If there is sincerity on your part,
free and open and frank dialogue, and that is what we will continue to have. We will continue to look to work constructively together, but there will be things we will disagree on, and we will have to continue.
Let's create the conditions first.
In the end, I want you to enjoy this clip.
We need to ensure that we are working together with our allies to find a path forward there, because a nuclear power like North Korea that has shown a level of irresponsibility and fundamental irresponsibility, to not use a word like crazy, which I will not use, is of real concern.
He's embarrassingly stupid, and I really hope the Canadians to rethink their choice in the next election. Even at United Nations, he was confronted with questions by the media, where he did not respond and had to walk away with an embarrassing face. Anyway, I hope you found this video informative. Thank you for watching it.